So we're here at the 19th European Workshop in Periodontology, which is doubling as the second European Workshop on periodontal education. And we've two critical gentlemen to the process here today, Professor David Herrera, who's the chairman of the Workshops Committee and of this workshop, and Professor Panos Papapnou, who's editor-in-chief of the Journal of Clinical Periodontology. Welcome. David, I might start with you. Just tell us a little bit about the overall aims of this workshop, please.
Thank you, Peter. When we started to design this workshop, we thought about the previous workshop, the first workshop on education in periodontology that took place in 2009. And we thought that it was time to update the recommendations that were made by that time. And the reason for that are multiple. First, the publication of the clinical practice guidelines of the European Federation of Periodontology, the publication of the new classification, now it's not new anymore, 2018 classification of periodontal diseases and conditions. We have the impact of COVID on teaching and learning methods. We have the recommendation of the World Health Organization. So there are a number of things that make necessary to update the recommendations, the learning outcomes, the methodologies for the education in periodontology, in undergraduate education, in postgraduate education leading to specialization, and also in continuing education. So those were the objectives and a clear need to update all the information that we have provided back to 2010.
Okay, and I'm sure getting from that concept to being here today, a lot of work had to go in behind the scenes to what does it take to structure a workshop like this to happen?
Well, yeah, it is a long process, takes time. First, you need to identify the topics, then how these topics are going to be or can be covered in reviews. Once you structure the process, you need to find out the experts that can cover those topics properly and produce scientific materials that can be used at the workshop, during the workshop. And of course, the experts, the participants. This year we have been very lucky because we have the collaboration of the Association for Dental Education in Europe, and the experts of this association has been fundamental for the development of the recommendations and the conclusions of this workshop.
Okay, and Professor Papapanou, I'm sure one thing to get here, but then a lot of material is going to arise, publications that have been brought forward and consensus. What is the workload that it takes to get from there to something that's acceptable to publish and put down as black and white evidence for people to read for years to come?
It's again a multi-stage process, and it has started already and obviously will continue after the workshop. But basically, because the journal has this high standard, everything that ultimately gets published in the journal is peer-reviewed. And the way it works is that we have a board of associate editors that are very competent people. So my role as editor-in-chief is when a paper comes in, I assign it to an associate editor, and the associate editor selects competent reviewers for the particular work. In this particular situation, you can also consider the entire workshop as a means of peer review. But we always try not to make the process too incestuous, you know? So we try to enlist external reviewers as well. So the reviewers that are enlisted for the individual papers are derived both from the pool of participants, which, as David said, are experts in the field, but also we try, to the extent possible, to have a fresh look to the material from somebody who is not so intimately involved in the organization of the workshop. And I think that this way we get a little bit of a balanced, unbiased view. And again, in this particular workshop, we had a lot of iterations. I mean, the post-submission work will likely result in some merger of papers. So, you know, it's going to be a multi-staged approach to reviewing. There will be an initial review, there will be some feedback, there will be some editorial input from the steering committee and me as editor and the associate editors. So again, at the end of the day, the aim is to produce documents that are going to be meaningful, that are going to be impactful, and that will do justice to all this huge amount of work that has been initiated months ago and is continues as we speak. So that's the ultimate goal.
Okay, yeah, and I suppose, David, for you, that naturally feeds into what we hope this will mean for the specialty and the profession. So how do you see the impact of a workshop like this informing the future of periodontal education?
Well, as we discussed before, we have the level of undergraduate education that was covered by Working Group 1. We have the continuing education systems that was covered by Working Group 3, and Working Group 4 covered the education methods. But a very important role of this workshop is the task of Working Group 2, in which all the concepts related to the training of specialists has been discussed. Again, the recommendations published already in 2010 were very important. We have been using that for the accredited EFP programs all over Europe and now all over the world, because we have accredited programs in Hong Kong or in Brisbane. And what the working group is doing is preparing which are the competences, proficiencies, and learning outcomes of the future specialists in periodontology, hopefully for many years. And together with those competences, proficiencies, and learning outcomes, they are also defining the context in which that education should be delivered. The methods is a really important aspect, because at the end of the day, periodontists are those who will advance periodontal science to the future. So their training is crucial for dentistry and for periodontology, and of course for the European Federation of Periodontology.
Okay. And to close, Professor Papapanou, I suppose the Journal of Clinical Periodontology now has true global reach. So how do you feel that, beyond maybe our immediate aims here, how this can inform the future of periodontal practice on a more global level?
I mean, one of the amazing things that the EFP has achieved with this workshop, I think, is the fact that although they have been designed with the European reality in mind, when they are produced, they have a global impact. And of course, as you said, JCP is the premium journal in periodontology today, publishing original research, so our audience is a global audience. So at the end of the day, you know, those concepts and those, you know, frameworks that are going to be put forward here, our ambition is that they will have a much more global applicability. I mean, obviously, there are differences between different countries. I mean, what we learned here in this workshop is that there is plenty of differences within Europe. So we recognize that fact. And despite that, we want to produce documents that have this external validity, that can be used as blueprints and as, you know, guiding principles for other organizations in other continents. And I think that JCP, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's a very good conduit to mediate that and disseminate that information. So that is the challenge also, that it is a European effort that has, in the end of the day, to gain some universal applicability. And judging from what has been accomplished by previous workshops, I think we're very well positioned to continue this fine tradition with this one too.
Okay. Well, I can tell you're both going to be very busy men in the days and months ahead, but thank you for all your work. And I think from talking with you, you're both very excited about the output of this workshop. So hopefully lots for people to consume in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.